right. So hi, I'm Erin Owens. I'm a professor in the library here, and as the scholarly communications librarian, I assist students and faculty with a variety of different topics related to planning, conducting, and disseminating research. And today I'm going to be focusing on a tool called Rayyan for doing systematic reviews. All right, so I'm not going to focus on systematic reviewing itself. I'm going to focus on the tool, but I want to do a really quick whirlwind recap of it so that we can identify the points in the process where the tool will come into play. So when we do a systematic review, we're attempting to collate all the empirical evidence that fits pre-specified eligibility criteria in order to answer a specific research question. I've highlighted a few pieces of that I think are very key. We're trying to be as comprehensive as possible, collecting all the evidence that we can. We do specify our criteria in advance so that we kind of have a set plan, and then we're implementing that plan. And we do start with a very specific research question that will drive our search. So this process uses very highly structured and very transparent methods. We're trying to create a search process that could be very reproducible by another researcher. And our main goal here is to be minimizing any possibility of bias in how we're collecting studies and what we're collecting. That way, hopefully, our findings are more reliable and we can make better conclusions. So making sure that things are transparent and reproducible involves specifying that question before we start searching, making sure we know exactly what our scope is. How are we going to decide which studies to include and exclude? Making sure that we're making every possible effort to find things comprehensively, ensuring that we're accounting for any possible bias issues like language, things like that. What language of studies do we look at? And then making sure that whatever analysis we do on those included studies draws conclusions based on all of that research in an objective way. I do always like to note that systematic reviews are only one type of evidence synthesis. Not every question is going to be well suited to a systematic review very specifically. There's other types of reviews that may sometimes be more appropriate, like a scoping review or an umbrella review. And I've linked a few resources here that you'll be able to get back to in my slides that can help differentiate some of these review types. And in particular, I really like this decision tree that I've starred here that can help you go through some questions to decide which type of review might be most suitable for your context. Okay, so I'm going to do a really quick review of this process, recognizing that we're only going to go into certain steps in detail based on where Rayyan intersects this process. So we start out by defining our research question. I've linked to some additional resources there about how we can make sure that we have a very precise, focused question. Based on that research question, we go through and we define our criteria. How do we decide what comes in and what we toss out? That might be only studies that used a very specific method, or only studies that studied a specific population or included a certain variable. We might limit the years of publication, that we only want to see the past 10 years, something like that. We identify what appropriate databases we ought to be searching. We try to formulate sort of our core search strategy. So based on my question, I know these are the core concepts I'm going to look for. And then we go through and translate that search based on each database, because every database has slightly different options for how complicated of a search we can do. So we translate that search into a strategy for each database. And this part of the process of determining the databases and crafting this search strategies, this is the place where many systematic review teams will call on the help of a librarian to assist. So we do our searches in those databases, and we want to download the search results that we get from those databases. That's going to be kind of where we start to get into this Rayyan tool, is when we've downloaded our search results. These are the various formats that Rayyan can support. So different databases are going to let us export our search results in different formats. When we get started in Rayyan, they've got the Rayyan Help Center has some really good details on, I'm working in this database. What file format do I need to use? And they'll kind of walk you through how do you get stuff out of that database to be able to pull it into Rayyan. So I've linked there to, they've got some very good, helpful files on that. But they are pretty comprehensive with these file formats. The RefMan RIS is a very common format that most databases support. And then a .csv file would just be a very basic file that could be imported as a spreadsheet or something. And usually any database that we're working with, we should be able to find one of these options. So we're going to import those into Rayyan. And now Rayyan is going to have like a little database of all of our search results. But depending on what databases we've searched, there's very likely to be some overlap, that we found some of the same articles in more than one place. So we need to go through a deduplication phase, and Rayyan is built to help with that. We can also do it somewhere else. If we're already very comfortable using a citation manager like Zotero or Mendeley or EndNote, we can use that tool to deduplicate. It's kind of wherever our comfort zone is. After we deduplicate, we go through reading only the titles and abstracts. This is usually multiple reviewers, again, helping to minimize bias. This is usually multiple reviewers who read just the titles and abstracts and apply those defined criteria and decide, does this article meet our criteria to be included in our review? The team kind of goes through, talks about the results of that screening and resolves any disagreements. And then we go through another round of screening where we actually look at the full text of the paper instead of just the abstract. We make sure that we still think all of those papers meet our criteria. And at that point, we have our final list of studies. So at that stage, we proceed with whatever sort of analysis we had planned to answer our question about those studies. And then sort of our last step here is that as we write up our analysis and our findings, we include a detailed report of the methods that we used through this systematic review process in accordance with appropriate standards so that we get that transparent and reproducible piece of this. So that's kind of the really fast overview of that process. Now that we have that basic overview, I'm going to shift gears and really dig into the Rayyan tool specifically. So Rayyan is a web-based app that's designed to help researchers conduct systematic reviews and other kinds of evidence synthesis. Because it's web-based, we can access it from anywhere. We don't have to do any downloads or installation. It does have both free and paid tiers of access. The free tier is really very robust. I've been very pleased at what I can do in the free tier, but there are some additional bells and whistles if we pay for a subscription. It does support collaboration really well if we have a team of reviewers, and it can actually provide the Prisma flow diagram that we often use in reporting if we've paid for a subscription, but I'll come back to the diagram piece again later. So when we get started, we go to Rayyan.ai, and I will pop that in the chat window. Let me see, where did my chat window go? There it is. All right, so that's the link to get started. And all we have to do to get an account started is just provide our email address and the country that we're in to create our account. They're right in the middle of a change in the interface. So when you first create an account, it might be in the older legacy interface. I'm going to be teaching the newer interface that they're moving to. So when you first get in, if it doesn't look like mine with the blue bar at the top, then you should instead see a button to switch now, and that will move you to this new interface. So once we get into our account, we need to create a project that we're going to work with. So we've got this very straightforward menu on the left where we can click Create New Review. and we'll enter some details. These are mostly just for us. These don't really go anywhere else, but to help us and our collaborators distinguish between different projects, we want to give it a title, maybe a description. We can indicate what type of review, whether it's systematic, scoping, etc. And then we can choose a disciplinary domain like biomedical, social sciences, just to put a little information in here about the review, about the project. After we enter all of those details, we'll click Create New Review. And then this second window is going to come up where it's going to ask you to go ahead and upload your search results from the databases. If we're not ready to do that yet, that is okay. We can set this project up before we've done those searches, and we can still come back to this later to upload those files. So there's no pressure to do it immediately. We can click Skip. And then the next thing it's going to ask us to do is to add other members to our team. Once again, we can do that right away, but we can also always come back and add team members later. They have several roles that we can give to a team member. So I've included this little chart for reference in the slides. We can have a viewer. All they can do is observe and see what's happening in the project. We can have a reviewer. They can be screening the studies, applying criteria, and making decisions, but they can't add more articles into the list, and they can't delete the project or do anything dangerous like that. And then a collaborator has access to the most functions. They could add new articles into the study, but they still can't delete the reviewer. So the person who creates the project initially has the most power over what happens with that project file. All right, so we can click on a project in our menu at any time to work on it. And we're going to see an overview tab that will show us some basic details about the project and some options for adding files and team members. So I'm going to switch over to my browser at this point and show a little bit about what this looks like in the real world. Let's see. Oh, and it moved me back to the legacy interface. So I'm going to click to switch back to my new interface here. All right. So this is, actually, let me go to this one first. Okay. So this is an example of a project that I have set up that's sort of at an early stage. We haven't started working our way through this yet. So I can see the details that we entered with the project title and whatnot. I can see the team members who are in here currently. And I have a little person-shaped icon here where I could add more members if I were the creator. Now, in this case, I'm not the creator, so I can't add a member, but that's where we would do it for a project that we own. It'll show us a summary of how many articles we've imported so far, and we can add more right there. So if I haven't added anything yet, I can just go to my Add References button and find the file on my device that I want to add. This is also where we can start doing our deduplication process after we've uploaded things. And then just below that, this keeps a little bit of a running status of the project as people are going through it. So it will let you see which team member has been working on things, how far along they are on getting through all the studies, just so we have an overview of how are we doing? Are we making progress? It will also give you a summary here of how many conflicts there are. So how many areas are there where one reviewer has said include and one has said exclude. So we can kind of keep track of just, do we all seem like we're on the same page? We all mostly seem to be applying the criteria in the same way. If we start seeing a really high rate of conflict, that might be a sign that our criteria aren't clear enough. Okay. So I talked a little bit about the deduplication already, that we'll often have some articles that are repeated in different databases. And so Rayyan can help us to identify things that might be duplicates, but it doesn't make the final judgment for us. It just flags them, and then it lets us review them and make that final judgment as to whether or not it's really a duplicate. So we, instead of our overview tab, now we go to our review data tab and we can detect duplicates. Depending on how large your data set is, if you have a lot of articles in here, it may take a few minutes. And then we can click unresolved and have it show us, okay, how many potential duplicates are you seeing that I still need to address? At that point, we kind of go through our own human procedure of reading the title and the authors, looking at the publication date. Rayyan will give us a percent similarity score that we can use just as information for us. And here I've got a screenshot where it shows 3 articles that it thinks might be duplicates. And I can tell it I want to resolve them. And then however many it thinks there are, like in this case, there's 3, it's always going to show them to you in pairs of 2 and ask you, which one do you want to keep? And so you can keep one of them or both of them. If they are duplicates, you get to choose which one is the better version to keep. Or if they're not duplicates, then you can keep them both. And you'll tell it to keep this one or keep both, and then it will show you the next pair as relevant. Okay, so then we're ready to go through our screening process after we've deduplicated. Reviews like this are generally done in a team. We really want at least 2 reviewers, usually 3 is even better, just to help reduce any unconscious bias. The reviewers independently read all the results, apply the criteria, and make decisions about what to include. I already said this before, it kind of happens in 2 stages of title and abstract and then full text. And most of the tools like Rayyan will offer a feature called blinding so that each reviewer, while they're going through and making their decisions, they cannot see the decisions made by other reviewers. That way we're not inadvertently influenced by their choices. So when we're ready to screen, we go to our screening tab and we make sure that we're working with blind on. So that's this little icon in our toolbar that will tell us that we're hiding the other people's decisions. The citations will appear in a list to the left. And as we click on each of those citations in the list, its details will open up on the right. And we'll be able to read the title, the abstract, all of those other publication details. So we go through and read the title and the abstract. We apply our inclusion and exclusion criteria. And then we have these colored colored buttons at the bottom of the screen where we can choose include, maybe, or exclude. Select our exclusion reason and add labels. So this is another moment where I'm going to flip over here and show this in action. So I'm on my overview tab. I could go to my review data tab if I need to deduplicate, and then I'm ready to go to my screening tab. I look up here and make sure, okay, my blind is on. I'm going to read through this abstract. Now, when I make a decision, if I decide to exclude this one, I'll just click the red exclude button at the bottom. And then it has a list of reasons that I can choose for why did I exclude this study. Depending on your criteria in a project, you might not use all of these reasons, but you can usually kind of find something here that will fit with what you're thinking, that they used the wrong methodology. So maybe that's wrong study design, wrong population, things like that. So we just check mark whatever our reason is for excluding it. And we can also add notes in the very bottom box. So if the exclude with reasons kind of explains why, but we want to add more detail, we can go down there in the notes and type in as much detail as we want about why we didn't feel like this fit the criteria, or questions and uncertainties that we want to discuss with our team, and then we'll be able to come back to all of those notes later. We can also add labels, and these are just anything that you want to custom create as a label for something that you might want to come back to later in some of these studies. When we first click there, there's nothing to choose from. There are no labels. but we can simply start typing. If I type meta-analysis, that now appears as a new label. And then I could check it and apply it. So now a little box up here at the top shows me that this article has been tagged as meta-analysis. And then I have that label available to use for other studies. All right. Let me flip back over here. All right, so this is sort of what I just showed. We use that drop down to choose our reason for excluding. For example, wrong study design or wrong population. And then this is just documenting what I showed about how we add a new label and including notes. So I really like to include notes about studies I find that I really want to be sure I talk about in the like introductory section of a paper or something. All right, so there's also some search features here that we can use during our screening. There's a keyword search box. We can search for a particular keyword. In my screenshot, I searched for lymphoma. There might be a particular key term where we know that I am almost always going to include a study if it has that term, or I'm almost never going to include any study that has that term. So we could do a keyword search and get a batch of articles that match some kind of a theme, and that might help us to move through that batch more quickly to do an include or exclude decision. We can also click this button with the 3 little lines, and it will suggest different keywords or other ways of filtering the studies. So it'll suggest some keywords that we might want to include or exclude. It's pulling some of those based on the papers that we've uploaded, but we can also add our own custom terms to that list so that we have a nice checkbox to come back to anytime we want to filter to that keyword. There are some fancy filtering options that are only available for paid accounts. I'm trying to remember now what some of those are, so I'll pull this up. Some of these are very helpful. I can search by how many members of my team have already made a decision. I can search by the labels that I've created or search by my exclusion reasons. So maybe I want to just go back and look at all of the things I've excluded for wrong population. But then as I scroll down, there are some PICO-specific fields for the health context that you have to upgrade to the paid account. And then some of these other options for things like publication types or filtering to a specific journal. Some of those are a little bit more bell and whistle kind of things that we have to pay for. So far, I've gotten by okay without them. All right. I showed this screen a few minutes ago on the overview tab. This lets us keep track of everybody's progress working on their screening, and also kind of showing us a running total of how many articles do we seem to be including so far. So we need to resolve our screening conflicts. Once all the reviewers are done, we're going to go to our screening tab and we're going to turn off that blinding feature in Rayyan. Then we'll be able to see everyone's decisions marked on an article. And we'll be able to filter to just the ones where we have a conflict. So we can drop down all articles and choose conflict. That will let us look at each other's decisions and talk about our exclusion reasons, our notes, all of that. The one thing to know here in Rayyan is that as we discuss as a team and we come to a consensus, each team member who is changing their decision will need to manually go in there and click that new decision button. We had sort of thought when we started using this that maybe the project owner could just kind of override it and say, this is now the consensus. But to reduce bias, they don't provide the option for one person to edit another person's decision. So each team member actually needs to go in there and click a different button to change their decision. Once we've resolved all of our conflicts and the menu shows us that conflict equals 0, Then we might want to look at any that are marked as undecided. So if for some reason one team member forgot to make a decision on something, we might want to go through and talk about all of those. Then we might want to filter to our maybes and discuss those. And with maybes, when we do title and abstract screening, we will sometimes include maybes that we want to push forward to the full text round and analyze in more detail. So you don't have to eliminate all of the maybes at this stage. Okay, then we're ready to move on to our full text screening. So this is one quirk of Rayyan. It doesn't support multiple rounds of screening inside of the same project. So effectively, we're going to have one project that is the title and abstract screening. And then when we're done with that, we're going to export the list of included and maybe articles and start a new project, a separate project that is the full text screening. And we'll just import those articles. So to do that, we go to the screening tab and we filter to just our included or included maybe. And we click on our little 3 dots button and click export. And actually, this is a good one to flip over here. I'll open this study so I can go to my screening tab. And I'm going to use this drop-down filter here to say I want to see my included articles. So it shows me I've got 51 included. And then I click the 3 dots over here and choose export. Now by default, it's going to try and export everything. But right now, I only want to export the ones that I've filtered to. So I'm going to choose filtered. And then it wants me to decide what to export. So by default, it's going to try to include the decisions that we made in the first round. But we're about to go through a whole new round and make all new decisions. So we want to take that information out and just export the publication data. We can put it in whatever format we want. I usually just leave it in RefMan because I'm just going to import it right back into Rayyan. We export this and it will save a file for us. And then we go back to our home dashboard in Rayyan and create a new review. And we'll upload that file that we just saved and create a new project where the title is essentially that this is that project, the full text screening stage. So I really wish they had a slightly better way to pull those two review processes together, but not there yet. All right, so that is how we create that new project for full text screening. This is just documenting the same part I said here. We create a new review, and then we repeat the process to turn on blind and go through each individually and make our decisions. But this time, in addition to reading the abstract, we will probably actually go down to that URL, open the full text file, and read the whole paper to make sure that we still feel very confident that it met all of our criteria. When the whole team's done, we go through that same process of just talking about our decisions, resolving our conflicts, and making sure we get everything down to include and exclude. At that point, we really do have our final set of studies. This is the stuff we're then going to go on and analyze. Now, there's sort of an optional piece in Rayyan called compute ratings. It's kind of an artificial intelligence-driven process. Once you've made at least 50 decisions with at least 5 includes and 5 excludes, it's going to use those decisions to try to guess or approximate what your other decisions will be. And it's going to calculate the likelihood of each article being included in your review. And then if you wish, you can use that as a tool to help you making decisions. This is entirely optional. I still feel very weird about letting AI bias my opinion of whether I ought to include something. So it definitely might provide some additional information, but we certainly don't want to just implement all of those AI recommendations without doing our own human review. I don't think it's quite that good yet. All right, so I wanted to come back to the Prisma flow diagrams. This style of diagram is very commonly used in reporting a systematic review. With a paid membership, Rayyan will generate this for you automatically. A paid membership is about $48 a year for a student or about $99 a year for a professional. If there are other bells and whistles that someone wants with a subscription, that might be worth it. I don't recommend paying that subscription only for the diagram. I've linked to a few other options in the slides where there's some other free options for creating those diagrams. The generator app is really great. You could just go through Rayyan and pull out the numbers and say, hey, I put in 896, there were this many duplicates, I included this many, you just plug in all the numbers and it puts this out for you anyway. All right. I always like to include a few other tools that are in this same space, because just because I'm teaching one tool, it may not be the best in every context. So some of the other tools that are available in this space, Covidence is one of the very big, well-known names in systematic reviewing. There is a free trial available. The trial is generally not sufficient to get through a whole review project. You'll generally need to have a subscription, and it is a bit on the pricey side. It does support data extraction. If you're going to do a meta-analysis after the review, it'll let you pull those variables out of the different papers. SysRev and Pico Portal, these are both tools that have both free and paid tiers. So they've got some simple options and some more complex options. With Pico Portal in particular, the real limitation is that you can only have one project at a time. But other than that, their free tier is very robust. They really give you access to all their other features. And then Hub Meta is another one that is entirely free. The only oddity about it is that there's very little documentation. There's not much in the way of a help file or a user's guide or anything, but it's fairly intuitive for someone who kind of understands how the process is going to go. So I've got links in there to some other tools if someone found that Rayyan didn't quite suit their needs. These might be other options to look at. Link to just a few other additional resources for you to have in the slides. The Rayyan Help Center is very good. We've got some different handbooks and manuals for like detailed guidance for doing systematic reviewing, and then various training courses and how-to ebooks from the library and things like that. So with that, I'm going to say thank you and ask, what questions do you have for me?